Welcome to the Mommy Oyoyo podcast. Mommy Oyoyo is a platform for the modern African woman to talk about anything and everything related to motherhood in today's world. Join me, Berry Dakara, as we tackle the good, the bad, the ugly, the highs, the lows, the wins, the losses, and everything else in between. Mommy Oyoyo is your plug for real life gist and experiences about being a mother, African style. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Mommy Oyoyo podcast. My name is Berry Dakara, and welcome. I know that it's been quite a while since I last recorded and published an episode. I want to say about 7 or 8 months ago was the last time. I will say though that the podcast was never really far from my heart. I always thought about it. I always thought about coming back. But somehow I got, is there anything called like podcaster's block? Like similar to writer's block? Is there anything like that? I don't know. But as of this particular point in time, as I'm talking to you right now, I actually have knots and butterflies in my stomach because I'm nervous. Because at some point, I felt like maybe I don't know how to podcast anymore. Maybe I don't know how to, I don't know, bring podcast episodes anymore. And I know that that's not true, but something inside my mind just kind of went blank. So that's, I guess, part of the reason why it's been such a long time. And as well as other factors, like just let me not even like, some of it was laziness as well. Let's just be honest. But yeah, I'm back now, and I'm hoping that I'm able to stay consistent for the foreseeable future. Fingers crossed. Anyway, this is episode 73, and in this episode I want to cover sleepovers. And in doing this, or in preparation to record, I put out a poll on my personal Instagram account, which is at Berry Dakara, and I asked people, sleepovers for your children, yes, no, or it depends. For yes, I got 6% of the vote. So 6% of respondents answered yes, sleepovers. 54% of, oh, my child is awake. Hang on one second. Okay, where were we? Sorry about that. Yeah, she's not feeling too well, and she woke up to come to my room for a little bit. So you guys know how that is, okay? Anyway, back to the poll. So I asked people what they felt about sleepovers, and 6% of the respondents said yes to sleepovers. 40% of the respondents said it depends, and 54%, which is the largest percentage, said absolutely not. Then I also asked, if no, why not? And if it depends, what on? So for some of the people that said no, someone said it's too risky and the world we live in right now is crazy. Another respondent said no, because there's no reason for it. They have comfortable beds at home. That's almost like there's rice at home, maybe. Someone else said, I just don't trust everyone else's parenting skills. There was another response that said, there are too many stories of sexual abuse out there. Another parent said, unless I can be there to supervise, I will not allow my children to go to sleepovers. Sadly, that's how life is. Let's see who else responded. Let's see. Someone else just said, no reason. I just feel like my child is safer in my house. Another person said, no, because daddies and uncles walk at night, which obviously infers molestation or worse, right? Um, Another person said, no sleepovers. I just don't want to hear any stories. And then a couple of people just said, no, because my child is too young right now. Then of the people that said it depends, majority of the people said it really depends on where the child is going to sleep over. So majority of people were like, if they're going to my parents' house or my siblings' house or a trusted family friend, then sure, I don't mind them sleeping over. A couple of them also were saying that it depends on what the reason is for the sleepover. If it's because, the parents are traveling out of town and they just need someone to watch their child, then that's a valid reason for a sleepover. For some people, it's just, listen, if it's not a family sleepover, then no. So I think majority of people are saying, or the majority of the people who are saying it depends would rather that it's under someone's house that they are related to or very, very close to. And I think I can agree with that. I don't think there is necessarily a right or wrong answer to this question, sleepovers or not. I think it really depends on the parents and also the children involved. I personally only allow my daughter to go on sleepovers at my sister's house, my cousin's house, and of course at her father's house because you guys know that we are divorced. So technically it's not a sleepover because she's with her other parents, but in a way it's still kind of like a sleepover because she's away from me, if that makes any sense. But yeah, for me, I typically would not. Well, she's just 5 as well, so we haven't had any requests yet to go sleep over at a friend's house. But I would be very, very. See, at the end of the day, we're Africans, okay, and we're not the most. Sleepovers are not a big thing. I think in African society, number one, unless it's to a family friend or a family or a relative's house, right? But then again, when you think about life back home, and even not just back home, I would say also here in the US and in other countries as well, I would say, there's been a history of things happening that shouldn't, right? You watch all of these movies, you hear news stories of just horrors that happen to children under another parent's watch, right? And sometimes it's deliberate, sometimes it's an accident. So for us as Africans, I think majority of us would be like, mostly no, right? So that's where we are. I would say though, I decided to go look at or check out some tips for those people who are considering allowing their child to go for a sleepover, right? Some of the things that you need to think about would be, number one, is your child ready? How old is the child? Is the child like, again, Coco is 5 years old. My daughter is 5 years old. There's no way I'll be allowing her to go to a sleepover that's not at my sister's house right now or my cousin's house right now. If she was 13, maybe. And that would be a very, very slim maybe as per going to another person's house. I don't know. But you need to be sure that your child is actually ready for such a step, right? Number two that I want to consider would be, how well do you know this other family? You're sending your child to go stay in another person's house. Do you trust the parents in that house? Do you have a relationship with those people? Do their values align with the values that you have? Does the way they raise their children align with how you raise your children? I mean, of course, there will be differences. We're not all the same, right? There'll be differences. But can you, for the most part, be comfortable with having your child stay over at their house? In fact, one thing I would ask is, are you even comfortable allowing your child to visit without you being there? Like, even if it's daytime, are you comfortable with your child going to that person's house? If you're not, then there's absolutely no reason why they should be sleeping over at that house, right? But I think that a big thing, a very, very big thing, is you need to know who the adults are in that house. You need to know and trust that they will be able to take care of your child, if not the same, but in a similar manner with which you take care of your child, right? So that's number two. Number three, you need to know who else is going to be at that sleepover, which other children are coming. You also need to know which other adults, are there any other adults in the house? Like, does the child who your child is going to visit, does that child have older siblings, of the same sex or opposite sex, or gender, whichever you have? Are there relatives that are visiting in that house? Who are those relatives? Is an uncle coming to visit? Is an auntie coming to visit? Because it's very easy to say, well, there's some wayward uncles that will come and like, oh, come and sit on my lap or whatever. But the simple truth of the matter is, a lot of young men, African men, are molested by their friends' older sisters, right? Like, women also commit sexual assault and sexual molestation and all of that. So you need to be aware of who and who is in that other house. Is there a housemaid? Is there a driver? Is there, well, these are for people who can afford such things. Which staff is in that house? You need to be sure of who else is going to be in that house, and do you trust everybody that's going to be there? The other children that are going to be there, where are they coming from? What are the values in their houses? Like, I know you can't know your friends, your child's friends, other friends. You can't know all of them, but you want to have at least some idea, right? And you want to be sure that they are going to have a positive influence on your child, and vice versa. If you know that there is a child who has had behavioral problems or whatever, if you know that they're going to be at a sleepover with your child, would you want them there? If you know that there's a child who has a reputation as a bully or any of these other things, would you want your child to be at a sleepover with that person, with that child, right? So these are some of the things I need to consider. Another question you want to ask is, what activities are planned, right? Are they going to watch movies? If yes, what movie is planned? Are you comfortable with allowing your child to watch that movie or those movies? And that's even something that my sister and I don't particularly agree with. There are certain programs that she allows her children to watch that I wouldn't allow Coco to watch. But sometimes I'm just in a bind and I just need Coco to go over there. So I close my eye and that's fine. Coco is there. I'm just going to keep quiet. But Coco knows that in our own household, we don't watch such things. So for you too, you want to ask those questions is, what do the other child's parents, what are they allowed to watch? What kind of music are they allowed to listen to? What kind of books are they allowed to listen to? Like, what is the media allowance, I guess, in the other household? And are you comfortable with your child being exposed to such things? That depends on what answers they're going to give to you. So you want to ask that question. Another, I think, very important thing you want to consider is your child able to speak up for themselves, period? And are they able to speak up for themselves in your absence? Because again, there are stories, there are things that happen. will your child be able to, stand up and say, no, this is not right. No, I don't like this. No, I don't think this is the correct thing to do. Are they able to stand their ground and say, I'm not going to partake in this activity, or no, I don't like this? Will they be able to, confidently and assertively decline activities or things that they're just not comfortable with? If they are not, if they are not able to do that, then chances are they really shouldn't be going for a sleepover, right? If you can trust that your child, you've instilled certain values in your children, and you trust that they can say, no, my mommy says that we're not allowed to kiss. So if they're at a sleepover and other children are kissing, will they be able to say, no, I'm not going to do that because my parents have said, no, I don't do such things, right? Or show me your this and show me your that. Are your children able to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not what we do. That is wrong, right? So you want to be comfortable with knowing that your child can stand up for themselves. You also want to know that your child will be able to tell you if something goes wrong or if something went wrong. Is your child prone to keeping secrets from you? If they are, then do you want them at a sleepover where things happen or things might happen and then they don't come back and tell you? I'm not saying that it should be a tattletale, right? But do you have an open communication? Do you have open communication with your child? Will your child tell you what happens, good or bad? If you're not sure, then probably not a great idea to let them go on a sleepover. Another thing you want to think about, of course, is security and being able to have access to your child while they're at this person's house. If they don't feel comfortable for whatever reason, you want to be sure that they can reach you at any point in time, right? So that if you need to get up and go pick them up for whatever reason, then you can. Will the other parent allow for your child to reach out to you? Those are some of the things I want to consider. One of the things that I saw on several articles was to make sure that your child has a code word to say to you that maybe the other parent might not know of, but that will communicate to you that they want to come home. So, and I think that that's a very good practice to have if you're going to allow your child to go on a sleepover. So, yeah, those are some of the guardrails you want to put in place if you're going to allow your child to go on a sleepover. And I also looked up alternatives to sleepovers, and they're called sleep unders or a half sleepover. And basically, it's almost like having a pajama party allowing your child to go to like a pajama party, but picking them up before it's bedtime. So let's say it's on a Friday or on a Saturday. You have your child go over at like 5 o'clock in the evening or 4 o'clock, whatever. And by 8 o'clock or so, you're going to go pick the child up. They've already had their like little activities, whether it's watching a movie, whether it's making pizza or baking or whatever, like in their PJs or something, but they're not actually sleeping over. In my mind, that's just like having a regular party, but hey, maybe like a theme party. But that was an alternative that I saw to sleepover. So what do you think? Let me know. I'm gonna post a question on the Mommy Oyoyo platform, and I'd be happy if you would go and leave your comments and leave your own thoughts on whether you would allow your children to go on a sleepover. In fact, sorry, another alternative that I saw quite a bit was, instead of my child to go and sleep over somewhere else, let the other children come to my house and sleep over in my house. So I guess that's an alternative for you, but then that also means that other people have to allow their children to come and sleep over at your house. So Yeah, but thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Okay, thank you very much for listening to this episode. I think that if you enjoyed it, then something else you want to listen to would be episode 60, where I spoke to Ndali about teaching children about consent. Ndali is part of Hands Off Initiative, and they are an organization that aims to break the cycle of abuse and address the problem of rape, sexual abuse, harassment, and assault. And I think that that would be a good episode for you to listen to as well. That's episode 60 of this podcast. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope I catch you on the next one. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Mommy Oyoyo podcast. Real conversations about motherhood for the modern African woman. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe to Mommy Oyoyo on your preferred podcast player, share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To keep up and join our conversations online, you can follow on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Mommy Oyoyo. Also check out our website at www.mommyoyoyo.com and feel free to send feedback via email to mommyoyoyo@gmail.com. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time.